There is a handgun sitting in evidence lockers, courtrooms, and police memos across the country right now. It is the Sig Sauer P320, and just a few years after becoming one of America's best sellers, almost nobody wants to touch it. Here is exactly why that happened. Sig Sauer released a pistol called the P320, built to be the future of American law enforcement and military service. The design was simple and clever. Every P320 is built around one small metal part called the fire control unit. That single part is the actual legal firearm. Everything around it, the grip, the slide, the barrel, is just a shell that can be swapped out. An officer could carry a full-size duty gun on patrol and drop the same trigger unit into a smaller frame for off-duty carry, using the exact same internal parts the whole time. Departments loved that idea. It meant less training, lower cost, and one trusted platform doing the job of 5 different guns. The United States Army noticed too. In a major nationwide trial to replace the aging Beretta M9, the Army chose a modified version of the P320. They called the full-size version the M17 and the compact version the M18. It became the official sidearm of every branch of the American military, from the Army to the Marine Corps to the Air Force. That contract alone was worth more than $580 million. With the potential to grow far larger over the life of the program. For Sig Sauer, this was the biggest win in company history. It meant hundreds of thousands of these pistols would be riding on the hips of American service members around the world. Civilian shooters followed right behind the military, and law enforcement agencies followed just as fast. Gun stores could barely keep the P320 on shelves. Police departments across the country switched their entire duty fleets over to it. It became one of the best-selling handguns in the entire country, sitting near the top of nearly every sales chart for years in a row. This was not a niche product. This was one of the most trusted, most widely issued handguns in modern American history. For a few years, everything looked perfect. Then the reports started. Officers began saying their P320 fired while it was still in the holster. No hand near the trigger. No one touching the gun at all. 1 second it was holstered, the next second it had gone off. These were not stories from random internet forums. These were official police reports, filed by trained officers who had carried firearms for years and knew the difference between their own mistake and something going wrong with the gun itself. Some officers described the pistol firing as they sat down in a patrol car. Others said it happened while they were simply walking, with the holster doing nothing more than holding the gun in place the way it always had. Sig Sauer's answer was consistent from the very beginning. The company said the P320 could not fire without the trigger being pulled. They pointed to safety testing. They said the pistol met and exceeded every industry standard for drop safety and trigger safety, standards set by the organization that certifies ammunition and firearms safety across the entire industry. In court and in public statements, that has remained their position for years, and it has never changed. The company has also argued that many of these claimed failures came down to holster problems, foreign objects catching the trigger, or user error during holstering, not a flaw in the gun itself. But the lawsuits kept coming. And they kept growing. By early 2026, more than 100 individual and group lawsuits had been filed against Sig Sauer over the P320. People from more than 20 states joined these cases. One filing alone added 22 new plaintiffs from 16 different states in a single court document. A later filing added 34 more plaintiffs from 23 states, making it the largest single filing against the company so far. Most of these people were police officers or former officers. They said the same thing again and again. Their gun was holstered. Their finger was nowhere near the trigger, and it fired anyway. 2 of these cases actually went in front of a jury, and the results should have been a warning sign for the entire company, In Georgia, a man named Robert Lang said his holstered P320 fired on its own and injured him. In June 2024, a jury agreed with him. They awarded him $2,350,000 and ruled that the P320 was defectively designed. Sig Sauer asked the court to throw out that verdict. The court said no. The jury's decision stood. Then came Philadelphia. Another case, another jury, another holstered discharge. This time the jury awarded $11 million. Two separate juries in two separate states, looking at two separate incidents, both reached the same conclusion. Something was wrong with this gun. Sig Sauer has not lost every case. The company has also won dismissals, close to 20 of them, and some plaintiffs have dropped their claims after their own experts could not make a P320 fire without pulling the trigger under controlled testing. In fact, one Puerto Rico case was thrown out in early 2025 after the officer bringing the claim admitted in court paperwork that his own pistol had no defect and had not fired without the trigger being pulled. This fight has never been simple or one-sided. But two juries deciding against a major gun manufacturer with multi-million-dollar verdicts is extremely rare in the firearms industry. That got attention everywhere, especially inside police departments that had trusted this pistol with their officers' lives. The most serious incident happened during police training, not on the street. In September 2024, a recruit in Spokane, Washington, was practicing a basic drawing drill at the police department's shooting range. This is one of the most routine exercises in all of law enforcement training. Draw the pistol from the holster, bring it up, aim. Officers practice this movement thousands of times over the course of a career. Witnesses on the range said the exact same thing about what happened next. The recruit's finger was not on the trigger. As he drew the pistol from the holster, it fired on its own. The recruit later said he felt the back of the gun bump against his vest right before it went off. The firearms instructor standing nearby backed up his account completely, saying he looked immediately at the recruit's trigger finger and it was not on the trigger. The bullet hit the concrete ground. Fragments from that impact struck the instructor and another recruit standing close by. Both were hurt. The Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission does not train new officers casually. Every single recruit in the state passes through their doors. After this incident, they launched a full investigation. They brought in outside experts. They even brought in representatives from Sig Sauer itself to be part of the review. This was not a rushed decision made in anger. It took months. In February 2025, the investigation ended, and the commission made the P320 permanently banned from every police academy in the state of Washington. Every single recruit training to become an officer in Washington would now learn on a different handgun completely. Once one major agency made that call, others started asking the same hard questions. Word travels fast between police departments. Firearms instructors talk to each other across state lines. Union representatives compare notes on liability and officer safety. A permanent ban from a respected state training commission does not stay contained to one state for long, and it did not this time either. In Chicago, a detailed internal safety review looked closely at the P320's design and its history of complaints. In April 2025, that review was presented to the department's Arsenal Committee, the group responsible for deciding which weapons Chicago officers are allowed to carry. The committee voted, with no one disagreeing, to begin phasing the P320 out of service completely. Just days later, the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, the union representing the city's officers, sent a formal letter to the police superintendent. The letter pointed out that recruits at the police academy had already been told not to buy the P320 anymore, and it called for fast action to protect both officers and the public from the risk. Then a federal judge stepped in and ordered Chicago police to complete that phase out, after the police union pushed for exactly that outcome. A federal court ordering a major American police department to stop using a specific handgun almost never happens. It shows how seriously the legal system was taking this pattern of failures. In Houston, an officer was seriously hurt in 2025 after his P320 fired without warning. The department suspended its use immediately following that injury. It was not just local police either. Two federal agencies made the same call around the same time. Immigration and Customs Enforcement halted use of the P320 across its officers. The Air Force Global Strike Command, the military unit responsible for America's nuclear-armed bombers and missiles, did the same for its personnel. When agencies at the federal level, the state level, and the city level all start pulling back from the same handgun within months of each other, that is not a coincidence. That is a pattern too big to ignore. Then in the summer of 2025, the story reached the United States military in the most serious way possible, and it became something far more serious than lawsuits and department reviews. On July 20th, 2025, a 21-year-old airman named Braden Loven was on duty at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. He was wearing his standard-issue M18 pistol, the exact same design as the civilian P320, just built for military service. During his shift, the weapon discharged. Airman Loven died from that gunshot. The Air Force's Global Strike Command, the unit responsible for America's bomber aircraft and nuclear missile systems, made an immediate decision. Just 2 days after the shooting, they ordered every single one of their more than 33,000 personnel to stop carrying the M18-2 pistol until investigators understood exactly what had happened. This was not a small, quiet policy change. This was one of the most powerful commands in the entire United States military, telling tens of thousands of armed personnel guarding nuclear weapons to set aside their standard sidearm. Then the Air Force went even further. Officials ordered a safety inspection of every single M18 pistol in their entire inventory, close to 125,000 handguns, checked one by one. Some units also ran refresher training for their airmen on proper handling and holstering, just to remove any possible doubt. An Air Force spokesperson said the inspections were meant to validate that every weapon was working correctly and to rebuild confidence in a sidearm that thousands of airmen carry on duty every single day. As that investigation continued, the story took an important turn. Air Force investigators arrested another airman in connection with Loven's death on suspicion of making a false official statement, obstruction of justice, and involuntary manslaughter. This shifted the focus of the investigation away from a simple mechanical failure and toward a possible criminal act. It is a crucial piece of this story, and it means Loven's death cannot be presented as simple proof the gun fired itself. The full facts of exactly what happened that night are still working through military investigation and the legal system. Still, the timing mattered enormously. This tragedy landed in the middle of years of uncommanded discharge complaints tied to the same core design, and it pushed the entire P320 controversy into national headlines in a way lawsuits alone never had. Weeks later, in the middle of this national attention, one more incident became public. Years earlier, in 2022, an M18 pistol had discharged without an apparent trigger pull on a military base in Italy. No one was hurt that time, and an Air Force after-action report from that same year found a mechanical failure inside the weapon. That report existed long before Airman Loven's death, sitting quietly in military files, largely unknown to the public until reporters uncovered it during the 2025 investigation. For a company that had spent years insisting the P320 could not fire on its own, an internal military document describing exactly that kind of failure was a serious problem. By October 2025, the pressure moved from individual lawsuits and police departments to an entire state government. New Jersey's Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Sig Sauer, becoming the very first state in the country to sue the company directly over the P320. The lawsuit was specific and detailed. It pointed to real incidents inside New Jersey itself, listing multiple towns and agencies by name, including local police departments in West Orange, Montville, Phillipsburg, and Howell, along with county prosecutors' offices and even the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This was not a lawsuit built on rumors. It was built on a list of documented local injuries. The case named one tragedy above all the others. In April 2023, a police detective lieutenant named Walter Imbert was cleaning his own P320 at work when it discharged and killed him. Imbert was not a rookie unfamiliar with firearms. He was an Army veteran and the range master for his department, the officer responsible for training everyone else on gun safety. If uncommanded discharges could happen to someone with that much experience and that much respect for firearm safety, the state argued, then no officer carrying this pistol was truly safe from the same risk. New Jersey's lawsuit argued that Sig Sauer kept selling and marketing the P320 as completely safe, while these incidents kept happening across the country, and that this crossed the line from a difficult product issue into a legal violation of the state's consumer protection laws. State officials were blunt about their reasoning. One official from the state's Consumer Protection Division said that in almost any other industry, a product causing this many injuries and deaths would already have triggered a recall, and that Sig Sauer had chosen a different path instead. So where does all of this actually leave the P320 today? The truth is more complicated than a simple story of total collapse. The pistol has not disappeared. It is still manufactured. It is still sold across the country in multiple versions, from compact carry models built for concealment to full competition models built for target shooting. Resale prices have not crashed either. Used P320s are still trading hands every day at fairly stable prices, and some specialty versions still hold their value well among collectors and competitive shooters. The Army, the Marine Corps, and the Navy have publicly stated they still trust the M17 and M18 platforms and have made no changes to their programs. Sig Sauer has won real victories in court, including full dismissals where plaintiffs could not prove their case. This is not settled. It is still being fought out in courtrooms across America, and it may be years before a final answer is reached. But look at what actually changed on the ground, away from the legal arguments. A pistol that police departments once lined up to purchase is now a pistol that police departments are actively walking away from, one agency at a time. Washington banned it completely from training. Chicago was ordered by a federal court to phase it out. Houston suspended it after an officer was hurt. The Air Force paused it across an entire command and inspected every single unit they owned. A state government sued the manufacturer directly, the first time that has ever happened over this specific handgun. None of these agencies made that decision lightly. Police departments do not walk away from a proven, modern, cost-effective handgun platform for no reason. Switching a department's entire duty weapon means new training, new holsters, new budgets, and months of disruption. Military commands do not pause the use of over 100,000 service weapons without real concern driving that choice either. These are massive, expensive, disruptive decisions, the kind that no chief, no commander, and no state official wants to make unless the alternative feels far riskier. They only happen when trust has genuinely broken down at the institutional level. That is really what this story is about. Not one single moment where the P320 failed. It is about years of complaints, 2 juries who sided against the manufacturer, a training range injury involving 2 people, the death of a young airman, and a state government stepping in to say enough is enough. Piece by piece, department by department, the confidence that built this pistol into an industry giant has been chipped away. One lawsuit and one banned range at a time. Think about what this pistol represented just a few years ago. It was the handgun the Army chose out of every option on the market. It was the handgun police recruits were told to buy because it was reliable and modern. It was one of the best-selling handguns in the entire country, sitting in gun store cases everywhere you looked. That kind of reputation does not get built overnight, and it does not usually fall apart overnight either. It falls apart the way this one did, through years of individual reports that most people never heard about, until enough of them piled up that entire institutions could no longer look away. Sig Sauer still stands firmly behind its design. The military branches that matter most still carry it every single day. The full legal outcome of these cases is still being written in courtrooms right now, and it may take years before this story reaches its final chapter. But the agencies who once trusted this pistol with their officers' lives, one after another, started asking a question no gun company ever once asked about their most important product. Can we still trust this to work the way it is supposed to every single time without exception? For a growing number of departments across this country, right now the honest answer has become no.